Coming up on today's show, can the Tesla Model 3 double the charge speed of any previous model? Will the next Peugeot 208 GTI be an electric? And see the Volkswagen IDR Pikes Peak Challenge from the air. But first of all, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you're listening in the world. Hello and welcome to the Sunday, the 8th of July edition of EV News Daily. It's Martyn Lee here with the news you need to know about electric cars and the move towards sustainable transport. Boy, oh boy, is it a hot one here in the UK right now. Mini heat wave. There's nothing mini about it. Max heat wave. Must be 30 degrees. Today, as we're recording this, the car says 30.5, inside says 26. Now, you may find that funny if you're listening to us somewhere hot, but let me tell you, the UK isn't equipped for heat. We don't have HVAC systems. We don't have air conditioning. Maybe office blocks and things do, but at home, we barely have a fan. I had to go and buy a fan earlier this week because we don't own a fan. It just doesn't get this hot. So from the sweltering 30 degrees C heat of the UK, thank you for tuning in today. Hope your weekend's going very well. A quick mention for what Elon Musk and the SpaceX team are doing right now. If you haven't seen this, go and check it out online. You know the incredible and very emotional story of the Thai school children who, along with their teacher, have been stuck in a flooded cave. And the monsoon rains are coming, and if the waters rise, they need to be rescued beforehand, and they're stuck a long way underground. And you saw that, if you know, Elon Musk saw this story and said that he will put everybody who can in his organizations, Tesla, the Boring Company, SpaceX, who can possibly help, and put them in touch with the Thai government. That moved forward, and the latest is the team from SpaceX were tasked yesterday with creating some sort of mini sub for each of the boys to go in with an oxygen supply. And then 2 professional divers can then take that through the flooded parts of the cave back into safety, because divers can get to where they are, but it's just such a treacherous, you've got a real expert diver to actually get to where the flooded areas in which they are. It's amazing what they're doing, and some of the most clever people in the world must work at places like SpaceX, and Elon putting all of their possible resources to help the Thai government. Incredible. Not really an EV story, but wanted to mention it. Well, we'll start with following up yesterday's story, which even then I only briefly mentioned because this was a tweet which was 2 weeks ago, and it was by EVTech Fast Charging, a Swiss company that have put a picture. They're very proud of their new fast chargers, and they put a picture on their Twitter feed 2 weeks ago, and in the background was a Nissan LEAF, a white Nissan LEAF. Now, it's got the charger coming out of the front, then the charge cable disappears out the bottom of the photo where the photo's cropped, then the cable comes up, you presume the same cable, into one of EVTech's fast chargers. What's interesting is if you really zoom in on the display, it says they're charging at over 100 kilowatts charge speed. And so I was asking, I literally saw it as I was coming down to the studio to record it, so I'd done very little work on that, but I wanted to mention it yesterday. So, having looked into this in the last 24 hours, yes, it does look like it's genuine. EVTech are a great fast charger. They kind of look like they are a Swiss company that maybe rebrand chargers as well. Their tweet, I've seen they've tweeted about it, and it is this: first attempt successful. The Nissan LEAF charges with 102 kilowatts / EVTech, hashtag EVTech, hashtag Chatham O, hashtag fast charging, hashtag electromobility. So it looks like what we talked about yesterday was true. A fast charging rate of 102 kilowatts at the state of charge of 32%. So that is almost certain to be the new Nissan LEAF, unless Nissan have worked out a way, or maybe there's always a way, of charging the current 40 kilowatt hour battery at over twice its rated speed. And considering some owners of the new LEAF are getting 20 to 30 kilowatts on only their second rapid charge because of battery temperatures, it would be surprising if this wasn't the 2019 model year LEAF, which has been made available to a charging company so that they can do some testing of really fast charge speeds on the brand new Nissan LEAF. So to recap on the leaked specs, none of this is official yet. 160 kilowatt motor will replace the current 110 kilowatt motor, which itself was rolled over from the old LEAF. 0 to 60 or 0 to 100 kilometers an hour will be between 6 to 7 seconds. The battery capacity is 64 kilowatt hours, probably about 60 kilowatt hours usable, and that should give you a range on a small car like the LEAF. This isn't an SUV, that, and it's aerodynamic and it's pretty lightweight. It should give you a range at least 225 real-world miles on the brand new LEAF. Thermal management system on the battery, and that will help with the range as well as the charge rates. Well, the DC fast charger will be rated at 100 kilowatts, and if it's in line with others in that kind of space, you'll be charging at home with your custom installer about 11 kilowatts with the onboard charger. However, and here it comes, the price is one of the best things about the Nissan LEAF. They haven't priced it out of the market. I hope the Nissan LEAF is profitable, by the way, for Nissan, so they carry on making them. 300,000 sold in the world so far, but the price is very reasonable. It's not a cheap car, but the price is one of the best things about the LEAF. My prediction, though, for the new LEAF, 60 kilowatt hour battery, £30,000 ballpark before any incentives. So here in the UK, £4,500 grant from the government would bring it down to just over £25,000. £30,000 though sticker price, well that's 34,000 euros, 52,000 Canadian dollars, 40,000 US dollars at current exchange rates. Now, one of our friends of the podcast, Phil Roberts, who is an expert on solar installs, and also his business is heavily involved in EV charging. He says that looks like, looking at the tweet from EVTech, that looks like a rebranded Delta Ultra charger that we offer. Looks strange though, as we can't see the Chatham O holder in the centre, and those units I'm pretty sure are only rated for 62.5 kilowatts on Chatham O. I'll ask the question, he says. To be clear, it'll do 150 kilowatts on CCS, but Phil says I'm not sure it does that on Chatham O, as the specs say 125 amps at 500 volts, which would make 62.5 kilowatts. However, although he says, I know the new Chatham O spec is out for up to 400 kilowatts. That unit is 300 amp capable, but I think that's only for two chargers at the same time, like a CCS and Chatham O together. Thank you so much, Phil, for bringing some expert knowledge to the podcast. Goodness, we need it sometimes. Well, we'll keep looking into this, and if it is true, firstly, I'm massively surprised Nissan haven't asked them to take the post down, because really it's for Nissan to be controlling the news flow of the brand new 2019 model year Nissan LEAF. Maybe they're happy with it being out there, or maybe it is the current LEAF, but they've done something funky with the 40 kilowatt hour battery to keep it really cool, or a different BMS, or they're testing a different BMS. Who knows? We will watch this space. Well, moving on to the Tesla Model 3, and maybe there's a very interesting thing going on with charge speeds with this. Well, according to George Bauer at Inside EVs, there's a very interesting thread happening right now at the Tesla Motors Club forum, along the same lines as the recent article in Inside EVs published about Model 3 supercharging rates, says George, based on a Tesla EPA document. Looks like the Model 3 could well be capable of maximum charging current of 525 amps. As TMC member Zoomit points out, 116 kilowatts, which they're getting on the Model 3, is basically the limit of the Gen 2 superchargers. We know Gen 3 superchargers out by the end of the year, and perhaps we're seeing a charger limit, not a car limit. Maybe the Model 3 is capable of charging higher than 116 kilowatts. If the Tesla Model 3 could hold this charge rate for to 50% state of charge, it would imply at least 180 kilowatts. We know Elon was talking recently about 200 to 250 being a sensible balance of speed and investment and C rate and things like that. So again, something that they might be future-proofing the Model 3 for and just haven't said anything publicly about. But if you'd like to go and test drive a Tesla Model 3, well, they're now offering test drives at 4 Bay Area locations: Dublin, Amador Plaza, Corte Madera, Sunnyvale and Palo Alto. And then yesterday, on Saturday, Tesla started offering Model 3 test drives at 4 more locations in the region: San Jose, Burlingame, San Francisco and the Stanford Shopping Center in Palo Alto as well. The test drives are offered to people people have put down the $1,000 deposits on a Model 3. If you haven't, you can't have a go, and a Tesla staffer will be accompanying you on that test drive, says the Mercury News. Well, here's a story that I first saw in Auto Express, and now it's in evo.co.uk, where Georgian Katsianis says the next Peugeot 208 GTI might not be a GTI, it might be a pure EV drivetrain. It's going to arrive in showrooms next year. And the Peugeot 208 has legendary, long time been a great little hot hatch, nice and small, very quick, great little fast French car. As for the next 208s, while the electric version may not immediately strike us as ideal, says Evo, we'd be lying if we said we weren't curious about what an all-electric Peugeot GTI might be like to drive. Well, you probably couldn't call it a GTI. There's nothing to inject. Moving on to some sales data here in the UK, and EV sales exceeded 6,000 in the last month in June 2018. Still plug-in hybrids driving it, though, are surging ahead of pure BEVs. Pure BEVs 1,519, which is up 4% over the year. However, 4,753 plug-ins, up 54% over the year. At the expense, shame, of diesels, down 30% in the first half of this year alone. Well, two more stories, and this year Volkswagen took its all-electric IDR Pikes Peak racer and smashed the overall record with Romain Dumas behind the wheel. 671 horsepower, all-electric VW managed to run the 12.42-mile circuit in 7 minutes and 57.148 seconds, which was 16 seconds faster than the previous record, according to AutoWeek.com. If you wanted to see what the run looked like, and all I've seen so far is YouTube videos of... I should play it rather than make the noise, but there's these YouTube videos that are 10 seconds long. The first 9 seconds, you hear it coming like zzz, and then the last second is that's it. You go, holy moly, that was quick. That's all I've seen so far. If you wanted to see the whole run from a bird's eye view, you can watch the helicopter shot of him conquering Pikes Peak, and at times the helicopter struggling to keep up. I'll put a link in the show notes. And finally, you know, we've been talking about EV myths lately on the show. This will make you smile. Here's one that I hadn't heard before, thanks to a recent study by German scientists. One of the questions they seem to be asking a lot is, can you drive an EV if you have a pacemaker? And you can, according to UF Health podcasts. The team found the electromagnetic strength, although it was highest when the car was charging, there was no pacemaker inhibition. Nobody got a shock. No devices were reprogrammed as you plugged your car in. Of course, the onboard computer systems have to work fine, and that's why all EVs have shielding to prevent electromagnetic interference with the computers on board. So you and I won't be surprised to hear that, yes, if you have a pacemaker, you can get inside an EV, even when it's charging, and it won't send the thing loopy. Well, thank you very much for getting in contact with the show today. A ton of comments on YouTube, which we'll do tomorrow if you're joining in with a YouTube conversation. Today, it's a Tesla feedback show, a Twitter feedback show, and we were talking about in Mallorca a couple of days ago, just off Spain, a Spanish island. Beautiful. We love to visit it, by the way. It's beautiful. And we were talking about how they plan to use a tourist tax to fund fast chargers, and Sven Medhus contacted me to say not a single battery electric vehicle was spotted in Mallorca in the last week, not even at this charger, and he sent me a picture. We've seen one donkey and plenty of diesel donkeys. I love it. He says, our donkey driver didn't believe 500 new chargers would be paid for by the eco tax by 2020, as this podcast reported. He says, I miss Norway. And hello to Beardy, who's a big fan of this show as well. I'm a big fan of what he tweets about and following his adventures and hobbies. Beardy McBeardface says about the Nissan story that we were talking about yesterday. If it's true, and I think it probably is true, that this tweet we saw, he says, if I were Nissan, I'd be worried about sales of the current model. Most would see this and think, you know what, I'll wait for the next one. I kind of get that. Well, actually, I know I do agree with that because a lot of people are waiting for the next one. I will come back, though, and mention the price. Like, I think that some of the best prices at the moment on buying a used EV, if you're doing a commute, grab yourself a 24 kilowatt hour Nissan LEAF. Go to the auctions or buy one in the used websites and things and get yourself a great deal. And that is a very cheap way to go motoring. It's still not the cheapest, but there's great money to be made and great money to be had on the very first generation Nissan LEAF, even the 30, right? That's a good deal. So I don't think that people will automatically go for the brand new LEAF over the 40. The 40 has issues with rapid charging at the moment. It could be that what they were testing in this tweet was some BMS upgrades, improvements, tweaks, which got a higher charge rate going into it. I don't know. And the Nissan LEAF is priced very competitively. The bigger battery is going to be a lot more money. And that won't suit everybody. We'll wait and see. What might suit you, though, by the way, if you're up for killing some time this weekend, or maybe on Monday morning's commute tomorrow morning, then you can download every previous episode of this podcast, all 173 of them, on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, YouTube, TuneIn, Stitcher, and the blog at evnewsdaily.com. Please do send me your feedback and your comments on today's story and the previous stories we've talked about as well, and I'll mention them on the show. If you want to subscribe, you get them first and free and automatically. And if you want to say hi on the socials, search EV News Daily. Have a wonderful weekend, and I'll catch you tomorrow.